Millions of years after humanity first reached the stars, the galaxy believed it had finally solved the human problem. The mighty galactic Concord, a coalition of thousands of alien empires, had spent centuries fighting humanity's relentless expansion, not because humans were the strongest species, but because they were the most adaptable, the most stubborn, and the only civilization that treated impossible odds as an invitation instead of a warning. Every attempt to conquer Earth had failed. Every invasion ended with alien fleets shattered by strategies no computer had predicted. Human engineers turned mining vessels into battleships overnight, civilians became soldiers within hours, and every defeat somehow made humanity stronger. Eventually, after generations of brutal conflict, the Concord abandoned total war and chose diplomacy backed by overwhelming force. Thousands of war fleets surrounded the Sol system, their weapons capable of vaporizing planets. Faced with extinction, humanity signed what became known as the Eternal Peace Accord. Every human warship was dismantled. Every orbital fortress was destroyed. Every military AI was erased under alien supervision. Earth was allowed to survive, but only as a peaceful, monitored world forbidden from ever building another fleet. Across the galaxy, celebrations erupted. The human age, they declared, was over forever. For nearly 800 years, humanity appeared to accept its fate. Earth became famous for universities instead of shipyards, art instead of armies, science instead of soldiers. Human ambassadors helped settle disputes between rival alien civilizations. Human doctors cured diseases that had plagued entire species for millennia. Human engineers built magnificent space stations across the Concord. Generation after generation grew up believing war belonged only in history books. Alien historians proudly taught that humanity had finally learned obedience. But what the Concord never understood was that humans had never truly surrendered. They had simply remembered an older lesson: the best weapon is the one your enemy forgets exists. Long before the Eternal Peace Accord, when the first war against the Concord looked hopeless, a secret project known only as Exodus had begun beneath Antarctica. While the visible fleets fought impossible battles to buy time, humanity's greatest scientists, engineers, explorers, and admirals quietly disappeared. Hundreds of prototype colony ships vanished through unstable quantum gateways leading beyond known space. Even most human governments believed the project had failed. Official records were erased. Participants were declared dead. The Concord celebrated every victory without realizing those victories had hidden humanity's greatest escape. Far beyond the mapped galaxy, beyond black hole clusters and impossible nebulae, the Exodus fleet survived. The journey lasted centuries. Many ships were lost. Entire generations lived and died aboard wandering cities among the stars. But humans endured. They discovered untouched galaxies rich with resources, ancient machine civilizations older than memory, and technologies abandoned by species that had transcended physical existence. They learned to harness stars as engines, black holes as factories, and gravity itself as armor. While Earth remained trapped under alien observation, the descendants of Exodus built an empire stretching across hundreds of galaxies. They never forgot Earth. Every child learned where humanity had been born. Every fleet carried the blue flag of the old planet. Every admiral swore an oath that one day they would return, not for revenge, but to ensure no human civilization would ever kneel again. 8 centuries passed. Then disaster struck the known galaxy. From a region beyond explored space emerged an incomprehensible force known only as the Silence. It wasn't an empire. It wasn't a species. It was a machine swarm older than civilization itself. Entire star systems vanished without battle. Planets simply went dark. Fleets disappeared without distress calls. Artificial intelligences shut themselves down in terror. The Silence consumed stars to manufacture more of itself, spreading like an unstoppable plague. The galactic Concord launched its greatest armadas. Millions of warships attacked. None returned. Fortress worlds that had stood for 10,000 years became drifting fields of molten debris. Refugees fled toward Earth, begging for protection from the same humans they had once disarmed. Panic spread through the Senate. Every strategy failed. Every weapon proved useless. Their historians suddenly realized a horrifying truth. The only species that had ever consistently defeated impossible enemies was the one they had forced into peace. Yet Earth possessed no fleet, no defenses, no military. Or so everyone believed. In the ruins of Geneva stood a forgotten monument dedicated to the Eternal Peace Accord. Beneath it lay a sealed chamber untouched for 8 centuries. As the silence entered the Sol system, the monument cracked apart. Ancient machinery awakened. A hidden quantum beacon powered by Earth's core activated for the first time since Exodus departed. It transmitted only 3 words across the darkness between galaxies: Earth still lives. The signal crossed distances no civilization believed possible. Across thousands of distant galaxies, billions of human ships detected the message simultaneously. In the capital world of New Terra Prime, Grand Admiral Helena Ward, descendant of the original Exodus commanders, looked at the ancient transmission in silence. Tears filled her eyes. The homeworld had survived. The Oath was still alive. She stood before the assembled High Fleet and spoke only one sentence: set course for Earth. Across humanity's hidden empire, stars themselves seemed to awaken. Dyson swarms shifted from energy collection to propulsion. Planet-sized shipyards opened. Moon-sized carriers powered their engines. Fleets that had never before entered known space aligned by the millions. Not thousands. Not millions. Trillions of vessels emerged from hyperspatial gateways larger than solar systems. The galaxy's astronomers thought entire constellations were exploding. They were wrong. The stars were moving. As the silence reached Earth's orbit, the sky split apart. Immense golden portals opened around the solar system. One by one, impossible warships emerged, ships larger than continents, surrounded by smaller escorts in endless formation stretching farther than the eye could see. Every vessel carried the same emblem, the blue Earth of humanity's forgotten birthplace. Alien sensors overloaded trying to count them. Their computers returned only one message: number exceeds calculation limits. The silence attacked immediately. Waves of planet-killing constructs surged forward. Human ships answered with weapons beyond comprehension. Gravity folded into blades that sliced entire machine fleets in half. Artificial suns ignited among enemy formations. Space itself became a weapon, tearing apart the invaders faster than they could reproduce. Human soldiers wearing armor woven from neutron matter boarded machine worlds and dismantled them from within. For the first time in billions of years, the silence retreated. Grand Admiral Ward ordered no pursuit. Protect the civilians first, she said. Humanity exists to defend life, not rule it. The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, the silence had been driven completely out of the galaxy. Alien survivors stared in disbelief as impossible human fleets surrounded damaged worlds, not as conquerors, but as rescuers. Human engineers restored collapsed stars. Medical ships treated alien refugees without asking who had once been friend or enemy. Food, medicine, and shelter flowed freely across every devastated system. The Galactic Senate expected revenge. Instead, Ward addressed every civilization. 8 centuries ago, you demanded humanity surrender its weapons. We obeyed, because our greatest strength was never our fleet. It was our patience. While you watched Earth, humanity explored the universe. While you celebrated our defeat, we built a future beyond imagination. We did not return because we hate you. We returned because Earth asked for help. Silence filled every channel. Elder diplomats who had voted for the Eternal Peace Accord lowered their heads in shame. Humanity could have ruled through fear. Instead, they chose partnership. The Concord dissolved itself voluntarily, replaced by a new alliance where no species could dominate another. Earth once again became the heart of human civilization, not because it possessed the largest fleet, but because it reminded every human where they had begun. The ancient Armada remained hidden beyond the galactic frontier, serving as guardians rather than conquerors. Stories of the return spread across countless worlds. Alien children learned that humanity's greatest weapon had never been its ships, its soldiers, or its technology. It had been hope carried across centuries, loyalty carried across galaxies, and a promise that no matter how long the wait, the crystal awakened as Helena touched it. A human voice echoed through the chamber, belonging to Admiral Jonathan Reyes, commander of the original Exodus fleet. His recording seemed almost alive despite being a millennium old. "If you are hearing this," he began, "then humanity has survived, and the Watchers have finally noticed us." Images filled the air. Long before humanity evolved, before Earth even formed, unimaginably ancient beings known only as the Architects had created countless universes-like experiments. They seeded galaxies with life, observed civilizations rise and fall, then erased everything before beginning again. To them, existence itself was a laboratory. Most intelligent species unknowingly lived inside repeating cycles of creation and destruction. But one experiment had gone wrong. Humanity had developed something the Architects could neither predict nor control: true choice. Every equation describing civilization eventually failed whenever humans became involved. They sacrificed logic for loyalty, survival for compassion, certainty for hope. The silence, Reyes continued, was never the enemy. It was only the Architects' first attempt to erase the anomaly before it spread. The room fell silent. Everything humanity had endured, the wars, the Concord, even the machine swarm, had merely been a test. Now the creators themselves were coming. Moments later, every observatory in every allied civilization detected the impossible. Entire galaxies at the edge of existence began vanishing, not exploding, not collapsing, simply disappearing as if someone were erasing them from reality. Billions of stars blinked out every minute. The void expanded toward known space with terrifying precision. Alien civilizations panicked once again, but this time they did not ask who would save them. They already knew. Across thousands of worlds, millions gathered beneath giant screens showing Earth. Human children watched beside alien elders. Soldiers stood beside scientists. Enemies stood beside friends. The galaxy waited for humanity's answer. Grand Admiral Ward stood before the ancient blue oceans of Earth and transmitted a message to every fleet under human command. "We did not inherit the stars," she said. "We earned them. If reality itself wishes to erase our home, then reality will have to fight for it." Within hours, the greatest mobilization in history began. Trillions of human warships ignited their engines. Dyson swarms detached from stars to become colossal shield generators. Planet-sized factories forged weapons unlike anything ever imagined. Civilian ships volunteered as supply carriers. Universities converted into research commands overnight. Farmers donated harvests. Artists painted banners carried by fleets into battle. Humanity had always understood one truth: victory belonged not to armies, but to civilizations willing to stand together. As the advancing darkness reached the outer galaxies, space itself cracked open. From the fractures emerged structures larger than clusters of galaxies, living constructs formed from light and mathematics rather than matter. These were the Architects. They possessed no faces, no bodies, only shifting geometric forms that bent physics around them. Their first message echoed directly into every conscious mind: Experiment 7,394,221 has exceeded acceptable variance. Reset sequence begins now. Entire solar systems dissolved into streams of white particles. Human fleets opened fire. Conventional weapons vanished harmlessly. Gravity cannons folded into nothingness. Then something extraordinary happened. A small civilian rescue ship named Hope's Lantern ignored orders and flew directly toward an Architect construct, not to attack, but to rescue trapped refugees from a collapsing alien station. Sensors showed no weapons aboard. Only families risking everything for strangers they had never met. The Architect paused. For the first time since creation itself, its calculations failed. Why would a species sacrifice survival for beings outside its own kind? Another rescue ship joined. Then another. Soon thousands of civilian vessels crossed the battlefield while military fleets desperately covered them. Humans and aliens worked side by side, saving lives despite certain death. The impossible spread. Architect prediction systems began producing contradictions. One human captain abandoned a tactical advantage to rescue enemy civilians. A scientist destroyed a superweapon she had spent 50 years building because its use would kill innocent worlds. A squadron of human pilots rammed their own ships into collapsing gateways to prevent an entire alien civilization from being erased. None of it made logical sense. None of it fit the equations that governed reality. The architects had mastered mathematics, but they had never understood compassion. Their perfect order began unraveling. The lead architect addressed humanity once more, but this time its voice contained something new. Confusion. Your species cannot be predicted. Helena Ward smiled. Exactly. Across the battlefield, billions of human and allied vessels advanced together, not because victory was guaranteed, but because giving up had never been part of humanity's story. And as the impossible war spread beyond the boundaries of the universe itself, every civilization finally understood why ancient legends always ended the same way whenever humans appeared. Not because humans were the strongest. Not because they possessed the greatest weapons. But because when the darkness became absolute, humanity would always choose to become the light.